Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jagdeep Alwali, and I'm the founding secretary of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Houston, which I currently serve as executive director. We would like to thank Congressman Kevin Brady for accepting our invitation for today's Power Dialogue. We are proud to be collaborating with the Greater Houston Partnership and the World Affairs Council of Houston for today's event, and are honored to have 5 business leaders joining us to ask questions after the Congressman has made his opening remarks. I want to introduce our Chamber Executive Committee, our board, our directors at large, and our advisors. We appreciate IACCGH advisors Vijay Guradia and India's Consul General in Houston, Asim Mahajan, for joining us. Today's webinar will be recorded and forwarded to all the participants, and we will load it to the Chamber's website, iaccgh.com. The program is also being streamed live on the IACCGH and SEVA Facebook accounts, and several of our members and supporters are also live streaming on their Facebook accounts. We are proud to be serving the business community for over 21 years, and we work closely with our sister chambers and associations. Our partner organizations who help promote today's event are shown on the slide that you see on your screen. We are proud of their support, and many of them, like the Indian Doctors Association and ICC, are also live streaming through their Facebook account, as is Ravi Brahmbhatt and other members of our chamber. I would also like to recognize our media partners who help get the word out about the event and also help share the report of the event after the event. I now invite Susan Davenport, Senior Vice President and Chief Development Officer at the Greater Houston Partnership, to make brief remarks on. Susan, on to you.
Oh, thank you, Jagdeep. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's discussion with Congressman Kevin Brady. My name again is Susan Davenport. I'm the Chief Economic Development Officer for the Greater Houston Partnership. And I want to take a quick moment to thank the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce for organizing today's event and being such a great part of our regional community. We thank them for all of the efforts that they do every day to promote Greater Houston. I also want to recognize our speaker, Congressman Kevin Brady. He has been a longtime ally and supporter of the Greater Houston Partnerships, and even supported a great program yesterday on USMCA Day and gave remarks that really were a key and pivotal part of our program. So thank you all for being here. A quick moment about the partnership for those who might not be aware throughout our audience. We're really one of Greater Houston's principal business organizations, and we help advance Houston each day as a great global city working across economic development and public policy, provide support, information, resources that help international businesses thrive in our region, and really provide a platform to connect foreign companies and entities with members of the Houston business community that are interested in investment and trade here. Last year, we were so privileged to welcome more than 160 international delegations to Houston, including the Prime Minister of Poland, the President of Guinea, and we participated in the Howdy Modi event at NRG Stadium when Prime Minister Modi visited Houston. We considered that one of the pivotal moments last year. We're proud of all the work that's done and consider Partnership Tower as Houston's front door, and we hope each of you will access that and use it as needed. Quick word about Houston, a remarkably welcoming city, easy to do business, diverse, globally connected, a population of 7 million people. That's increased over 1 million since 2010. A GDP of $500 billion, and really America's most diverse city, where 1 in 4 Houstonians were born outside of the United States. Our economy, as you can imagine, is deeply tied to global trade and foreign investment, including an amazing relationship with India. India is Houston's 6th largest trading partner now, with an estimated trade value of over $10 billion. And more than 500 foreign companies have invested more than $33 billion in this region over the past decade, including Mahindra, JSW Steel, Reliance, and Gale. And not only has our economy grown, but it's also become increasingly diverse. As I mentioned, in our economy, traditional energy now includes renewables, life science, biotechnology, advanced manufacturing, and growing digital technology, and an innovation ecosystem are many of the diverse natures that now make up this regional economy. So discussions like today really set the stage for how our two respective regions will continue to perform. Again, we are a strong proponent of free trade, and we continue to work with elected officials like Congressman Brady and his leadership and stakeholders across the board to ensure that Houston's status as a global trade hub continues and grows. We look forward to continuing our work with you all, and we'll strive to find new ways to develop our mutually beneficial relationships and strengthen our international connections. Thanks again to each of you present today for the role you're playing in making Houston the great global city that it is. And Jagdeep, I'll turn it back to you, but again, thank you for the opportunity to say a few words this morning.
Thank you, Susan. We really appreciate the long-term collaboration we have with the partnership. We thank you for your leadership of the trade delegation to India, and we hope it's going to bring in a lot more inbound investment. I would now like to invite Marianne Maldonado, the President and CEO of the World Affairs Council of Houston, to make her remarks. Marianne, are you on the call? I believe Marianne had some problems logging on, so I will now move on to the President of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, Tarush Anand, who will make the welcome remarks on behalf of the Chamber Board and move the program forward. Tarush is an attorney by profession, a partner at the law firm of Brown Sims, where he practices civil litigation and has represented a broad range of domestic and international businesses in various types of business disputes across the country. Tarush will make the welcome remarks and introduce the congressman who will speak immediately after him. We will bring back Marianne later. Thank you.
Thank you, Jagdeep. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Let me tell you a little bit about who we are as a Chamber of Commerce before we move on to today's presentation. We as a Chamber of Commerce were founded 21 years ago, back in 1999, with the idea of promoting trade, both inbound and outbound with India, for being the voice of the Indo-American business community here in the greater Houston area, and also generally providing support to local businesses to help them thrive and succeed. We've been doing this for 21 years and look forward to doing it for many more years to come. It's my pleasure now to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Congressman Kevin Brady, the U.S. Representative for the 8th Congressional District. There is so much I can say about the Congressman's work and experience, particularly as it pertains to us as a Chamber of Commerce and our business members. But frankly, the Congressman needs a little introduction, at least in this group. And I recognize that every minute I take is a minute less that we have with the Congressman. So I will yield my time and welcome to our stage, Congressman Kevin Brady.
Tarush, thank you so much for the introduction to Jagdeep, to the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for having me here today. I think at a critical moment, both in our economy, in our healthcare pandemic. This chamber for 21 years has done a remarkable job, and I'm so appreciative. You know, the role you've played in the economy, in the culture, in schools, in, you know, as Susan said, in creating one of the most diverse cities, if not the most, in my view, in America. And it has accrued your work, and your board of directors, your volunteers and business leaders, I think, have done a remarkable job. And again, thank you so much for the vital role you continue to play in helping Houston reach its full potential. I'd be remiss if I didn't, again, say thank you for your help and advice and counsel as we rewrote America's tax code. It was crucial. America's, frankly, our tax system had become one of the least competitive in the world. It was costing the jobs, growth, paychecks, and frankly, jobs continued and companies continue to move overseas at a fairly frightening pace. That was all reversed under the rewrite of the tax code. And in this chamber, in my view, gave me the input and advice as we move forward on that. I was also honored. And again, I thank the Greater Houston Partnership, Susan, for your leadership and work, and the World Affairs Council Houston as well. Both have a very long, highly respected, distinguished history here in our region, and we are better off for you as well. I was honored to have met President Modi last year when he visited Houston with the president. I always remember that day as an example of the unity and friendship between the U.S. and India. In February, President Trump followed up with a delegation visit to India. And while we weren't able to finalize a trade agreement during that visit, as I think many of us hoped, it's clear both of these leaders are invested in strengthening the relationship between our two great nations, as all of us here are as well. It is incredibly important that we work together to invest in and support our common goals. And to that end, I look forward to today's conversation. I want to leave plenty of time for the questions in conversation today. So, Tarush, with that, I'd be glad to yield back to you.
Thank you, Congressman. This is Jagdeep Ahluwalia stepping back in. So we are going to now move directly to our leaders that we have invited from across the community to ask you a question, which we will request you to respond to. The first business leader that we are inviting is a member of the board of the Indo-American, is an advisor to the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Houston. He served on our first board. Is one of the most successful Indo-American businessmen in Texas, if not America. He's now a full-time philanthropist giving back of time and money, and he keeps us on track. So I would now like to invite Vijay Guradia, the founder and chairman of Winmar International, to ask the first question. Vijay Guradia, over to you.
Morning, Congressman.
Yeah, Vijay, good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been some time since you came to my house and were kind enough to give me a congressional flag. I am so glad to see you doing as well as you have, representing our district and the country.
Thank you, sir.
Congressman, as a businessman with a global footprint and revenues of about $5 billion a year, employing thousands of people, I'm most interested in the government's fiscal and monetary policy and how it would impact businesses like ours. So my question to you is, last year you said the Fed shouldn't micromanage the economy. The Fed shouldn't focus on short term, it should focus on long-term stability. And yet the administration and you fully supported the Fed's moves in recent months that were focused on short-term stability. Why the change of heart? And my follow-on question would be, what should we expect in the coming months on fiscal and monetary policy going forward?
Yeah, thank you, Vijay. Let me tackle the first part of the question, I think, with more certainty. One is that the short answer is COVID changed everything. Leading up to that, as you know, because of tax reform and balanced regulation, America's economy had really leapfrogged the most competitive economy on the planet. We were seeing job growth, economic growth, paycheck growth, the first really in more than a decade. We saw a surge of dollars in companies and research coming back from overseas, continued growth in federal revenues, the two highest revenue years in U.S. history. And at the time, I think I and others were worried that the Fed would micromanage this economy, as they sometimes do, tapping the brakes prematurely in really a new economic times, where we were seeing wage growth and economic growth without accompanying inflation. So when they tapped their brakes, you saw bad things. That has always been my point, that the Fed really should focus on a sound and stable dollar, that the best way to grow the economy is to have the Fed focus to make sure we don't see inflation nor deflation, One robs your pocketbook, the other robs your job. And I thought it was very important the Fed neither accelerate nor decelerate the economy just to meet some artificial targets. But COVID changed that. As Federal Reserve Chairman said, we went from perhaps the strongest economy we've enjoyed in 90 years to the worst economy America has seen in 90 years in just a couple of weeks. It was unprecedented, required an unprecedented response. It got that first from our local healthcare leaders, business community, and regions as we rallied to make sure that we could develop a healthcare system that wouldn't be overwhelmed by COVID-19. You had all a government response from the administration, an unprecedented bipartisan effort by Congress, $3.5 trillion or more of emergency aid, the largest in U.S. history, focused first on developing the vaccines and treatments we needed, making sure that we funded what was essentially a cash flow crisis immediately on our small and Main Street businesses, and by the Fed, really an unprecedented response in capital, lending dollars to markets and businesses to help them ride this out, to address that cash flow crisis. I think all of that was needed, frankly, to stem what could have been horrific economic impacts and medical impacts. I think the recovery so far has been stronger than many predicted. The jobs reports have essentially beat expectations every month since February in March, but we have a lot more work to do. I am really worried that Congress will not reach common ground on what I think are just not big dollar items, but just some smart policies, another round of PPP for our businesses, incentives to both keep workers and hire them, a new healthy workplace tax credit that I developed to help offset the costs of PPE testing and reconfiguring workplaces so they're safe and healthy for our businesses, employees, and their customers. There are a number of key elements there. I do believe, though, to answer your final question, that Congress, rather than going on another spending spree, should come together now on some good, smart policies that can help our economy ride this out through the coming months. But beyond that, tackle the issues of growth and becoming more medically independent from China in crucial medicines, medical supplies, ingredients, and technology. I do believe that, and I'm pushing for in this last COVID package, that there be an agreement on a timetable for bringing back to Congress a plan to begin to get our fiscal house in order. I think you can't, deficits do matter long term. It would be foolish to ignore that. And I think it's important that both parties work together to address it.
Thank you, Congressman, and thank you, Vijay, for your leadership. I now invite Soma Sundaram, CEO of Champion X. He's also the chairman of the board of the World Affairs Council of Houston. Soma, I invite you to ask your question.
Thank you, Jagdeep. And good morning, Congressman Brady. It's good to see you. Last time we saw each other was pre-COVID at our offices.
It was. So it's good to see you, friend.
Right. So my question is related to the current COVID-19 environment. Like many companies, we at Champion X are very focused on protecting our team members and their families, and we are taking all necessary steps to do that. But we do have some infections consistent with what we see in communities and things like that. While it's often difficult to prove, how an exposure happened, my question is specific to whether you have a position on protecting employers, such as ChampionX, who are doing all the right things and making the good faith efforts from lawsuits related to COVID-19. So.
Yes, Soma, again, thank you for your leadership, both in this organization throughout the region and for your friendship as well. I think you're absolutely right. Businesses should take the lead in setting the tone within their organization and for their customers about healthy, safe practices and putting in place the protocols and the standards to protect both their employees and their clients and their customers. I think it is important for Congress to enact targeted liability protections. We need to create incentives and reward businesses who set and reach those standards of safety and health. I'm especially concerned about the number of lawsuits already being lined up, not just against employers who oftentimes can't control their workers' behaviors outside of the workplace, but also lawsuits against our healthcare communities and our frontline workers at a time, frankly, they need to be completely focused on this pandemic. So I think liability protection that is targeted doesn't create loopholes for bad behavior, but in fact rewards those good behaviors that we are seeing from a lot of employers, both here in the region and across the country as well. I also think that we ought to couple those protections with helping offset some of these costs. The reason I developed, on behalf of the Ways and Means Republicans, a healthy workplace tax credit is because some of these costs and expenses for testing, for protective gear, for reconfiguring their workplaces are extremely expensive, even more so for our Main Street businesses. So I think there's a role here for Congress to help shoulder the costs of that healthy and safe workplace, and coupled with those just common sense liability protections, I think is good from a healthcare standpoint, certainly good from a safety standpoint, and good for the economic recovery as well.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Soma. Thank you very much, Congressman, for responding to Soma's question.
Sure.
I now want to bring on Abizer Taibji, the CEO of Shipcom Wireless. He has been an IACCGH Entrepreneur of the Year, a very eminent businessman, and he has also invited Jay Pryor from Chevron, who I believe you know very well, Congressman, to also join us to make some brief remarks. So Abizer, on to you. And in your time, Abizer, you can invite Jay to also address the Congressman very briefly. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. If you can turn on my video and Jay's video. There we go. Thank you so much. And Congressman, as they say, that I'll yield my time to a much more senior person in the congressional order. My name's Abizer. Jay Pryor is a vice president of Chevron, and he's responsible for identifying and developing new large-scale upstream and downstream business opportunities. He's done this since 2006. He was a pioneer in Kazakhstan, Thailand, Nigeria. And essentially, let me hand it off to him. Jay, are you on, sir?
Yeah, thanks, Abizer. It's Congressman Brady. I just wanted to join the group this morning. I've been invited to the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce when I first moved to Houston from San Ramon, California. And so it's been a pleasure, Kevin. Great to see you healthy up there. I wanted to thank you very much for a lot of the things you've done for business. This group represents a real bridge to Asia. And I'll tell you, it's been a real help to businesses here in Houston for many years. But these folks are true Americans. They've been really helpful in the Houston community as well. One, they believe in the 2 F's, family and fun. And I'll tell you, I've had a lot of opportunities to engage in both with them. You got to make a couple of these gala events. Man, they are something else. And so once COVID's over, we look forward to seeing you back in out and about a little more. I know that thing. But thanks very much for your leadership in the tax reforms and the regulatory reform side. And hopefully you can keep working on this physical policy, because I agree with you. It's something we're going to have to address one day, or our children are going to end up with it. So thanks very much. I'll turn it back over to Abizer, but thanks for allowing me to be a part of the Indo-American Chambers. Welcome to you, Kevin.
But before Abizer speaks today, I want to thank you for your kind words.
Yes.
We really value our relationship with you and Chevron, and we really appreciate your kind words and your making the time. Back to you, Abizer, to ask your question.
Thank you. And Jay Pryor believes in family and fun. I actually danced in the streets of New Orleans on his son Adam's wedding. So thank you, sir, for making time. Mr. Brady, as always, thanks for your service, especially with Ways and Means. My question is, Indian Americans have beautifully assimilated into America, as you know. And in fact, the tech companies have now surpassed the entire the GDP of Europe, and they within STEM, within medicine, Indians have done amazing work, as you know. My question is, why is the green card process taking 15 years, 16 years for Indian Americans, and how can you shorten that, sir? Thank you so much.
First, Abizer, thank you for connecting Jay here today. He is a friend and a leader, and just crucial for our whole state and region. So Jay, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And Abizer, the short answer is this country must recognize the importance of high-skilled immigration, have pro-growth policies in that region, and take a merit-based approach. I absolutely agree. In that period of time for processing is just far too long. I've always supported measures that would remove per country limits for the EB2, EB3, and the EB5 visas, really create more reforms, first come, first serve for high-skilled immigrants, keep our high-skilled individuals in the country without placing caps on their bias or their country of origin. I think this is crucial both for India, but for the US as well. We want to, and especially now during the COVID, clearly we want to train up skilled workers from the US to fill every available job. But we recognize that there is still a skills gap. And our companies like Jay's and yours are competing against competition from around the world. You need to be able to recruit from around the world, the best and the brightest. And it is a win-win for countries. And so, I'm hopeful that I've seen the changes that have been made in the EB5, a program that increases the amount of investment. I know that the EB5 petitioners' applications are continuing to be processed. I agree with you. It is far too lengthy. I do believe it's correct in times of where there are 30 million or more Americans unemployed. We should continue to try to drive them into employment. That makes good sense. But I also think there's some common sense policies here that connect the high skilled with our businesses in a way that's good for the US economy, certainly good for our allies like India, and frankly creates opportunities around the board. What do you think?
I think so, and especially small business engine is being generated by Indo-Americans, and it's incredible. I did a LinkedIn experiment the other day, and the top CEOs are Indians, but even the second level, third level, fourth level in large companies are consistently being filled by American Indians, and rather Indian Americans, and they if they get a chance to travel freely, I think it's going to become the engine. And furthermore, also it becomes a bulwark against all the Chinese nonsense that's happening, sir.
I agree. And I think too, this could play a role in America becoming more medically independent, I think, from China, not in the sense that all the production of crucial medicines, medical supplies, and ingredients occur in the US, but that they can be anchored here and run through reliable trading partners. And I think there's a role there for good, smart immigration policy to help.
Thank you. I hope we can count on your support to shorten the process, sir. Thank you once again.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Thank you, Abizer, and thank you, Congressman, for your response. My fear as an American is if we don't fix this problem, which is a problem, a lot of the brain that we need here, because we are a knowledge economy, a lot of that brain is being seduced by our neighbor up north, Canada. So before Canada sucks a lot of the great brains from India that are willing to come to the Americas to go across the border, I hope we can do something to make America as attractive as it has always been to Indians. I now move on to JJ Hawley, the President and CEO of the Woodland Area Chamber of Commerce, to ask his question. JJ is a good friend and we collaborate a lot with the Woodlands Chamber. On to you, JJ.
Thank you, Jagdeep. And I very much appreciate our collaboration with the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. We've worked together on a lot of things, and I look forward to us working together on a lot of things in the future. And Congressman Brady, thanks for your time today and all that you do for us and representing us in DC. My question is around the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, or EIDL, and the Paycheck Protection Program, and where you see the increased funding of those programs, specifically as it relates to 501c6s. One of the concerns that we have is the EIDL program is originally focused on funding up to 6 months of operating expenses for those applicants, but because of the limitations in funding to the SBA, the cap was at just a straight $150,000, which depending on the size of your business could help, or it could be insufficient to meet their needs. So what do you see as the future of those two programs and how that also might benefit the C6s?
Yeah, thank you, JJ. Excuse me. And again, thank you for your leadership here at home in so many different ways. You have been great working with us on PPP and EIDL issues. Obviously, the Paycheck Protection Program, I think, has become probably the greatest jobs program, emergency jobs program in American history, saving nearly 50 million jobs in America, almost 5 million here in Texas, but more needs to be done. The Senate Republicans have introduced legislation that would combine the $115 billion left in the PPP program, add another $200 billion, allow for a second round of PPP loans, forgivable loans, would include, at our pushing and yours, eligibility for many of the chambers of commerce and economic development groups with 300 or fewer employees, to be able to access. I think that's critically important. The expansion of the PPP in the Senate bill also allows more use, broader use for expenses, more flexibility for businesses, and essentially really avoids the audit process, or at least a significant one for loans under 150,000. All changes we've all pushed for as Main Street business leaders. I think that's important. Right now, it's hung up. All this is hung up. Speaker Pelosi, as you know, has began with a $3.5 trillion package. While we still have really hundreds of billions left in the other emergency aid bills that we've already passed, Senate took a more targeted approach on this, really going to help small businesses, help unemployed workers, help schools, daycares in our healthcare communities, along with liability protection. So they had about $1 trillion focused bill. Right now, listening to Secretary Mnuchin and visiting with him the other day, the speaker is insisting really on a number, 2.2, 2.5 trillion. I really think the focus shouldn't be on a number, it should be on the need. And I think the PPP and the idle program are two of those bigger priorities. The idle program played a role, but I think it's been a frustrating one. The time lag in bureaucracy, it's just been way too slow and far too bureaucratic. There's about $175 billion left for the idle loan program, but what we know is that we are inundated by questions on the idle program from local businesses. The response is typically far too long here. And it's hard for businesses to make decisions on which is the best way to help their business and employees survive this. And so it's not lost on anyone that we need changes in the idle program in order to be able to help the businesses where that program can fit them best. I'm hopeful that Congress can come, look, we work together on 4 bipartisan.
Did the congressman's mics freeze?
I think it did. That's one of the joys of Zoom meetings nowadays is occasional video drops, but I think we have him back here.
Yeah, we have him back. Thank you.
It does happen. You know, the video was kind of interrupting, you know, every few moments or so. So maybe this was correcting it.
Thank you, Congressman. Our next question is from David Kinty, the CEO and president of Royal Equipment. He's a member of the chamber who we helped go to India. And I know the congressman has worked with him with his XM issues. I also want to mention that Marianne Maldonado, who was unable to log on earlier, will be making her remarks immediately after you have responded to David's question before we invite the Consul General. So on to you, David, to ask your question.
We may need to unmute David.
He needs to unmute himself, but yeah. David?
Can you hear me now? Is that working?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you again, Jagdeep and the Chamber for the opportunity to be here today and participate. And especially Congressman Brady, we want to thank you. I just want to mention that the PPP program that you adopted last year in our business, we were undergoing a large expansion of the US business for the first time in many years. And it became quite concerning when COVID hit. We were trying to decide whether we needed to shut down the business temporarily until we could get some certainty on direction. We had ports closed and components for our remanufacturing businesses were stranded. We couldn't travel to countries to put our equipment together. It was very challenging. And there were two things that were important: the PPP program and your personal visit to our factory to meet our people and their families. It gave them confidence that the government was there to help and not to hurt. And we decided to move forward. We kept everyone employed. We returned to profitability. And we want to thank you again for all that you're doing for small business like that. We're really proud of the alliances between India and the United States. We've experienced what's happening as we've grown our business for the last 3 or 4 years with the help of Jagdeep and others into India. We're watching the trade policies at the moment, and we know that the US government is making significant changes and hopefully positively viewed changes. We believe they're positive in the world community. And at the present time, we have some pretty high duties that we encounter on remanufacturing our products over in India of US made goods. 25% on diesel engines, for instance, which is very, very high duty rates. We're wondering about the US generalized system of preferences, the cancellation of that agreement in 2019 by the current administration. And what's the overall mood between the US and India as a result of that? Because we plan expansion this year into India. And if we're going to invest more dollars there, is the trend improving? Is it on, are things on hold? Is there any retaliation? Those type of things.
Yeah, no, David, first, thank you for your leadership of Royal Equipment. One, I had a great visit there. It was pretty inspirational, and you told the story of Royal Equipment's use of the Exim Bank lending and of our trade agreements and in Australia and other areas, and your role in really shifting then from a US market that was declining to a global market that was growing. Now it's good to know the US domestic market is back, or at least coming back pre-COVID. So thanks for all you do. You're just a model small business. Thank you for that. Secondly, so I think the relationship is strong and getting stronger. Clearly, Mr. Modi's visit here and President Trump's visit to India were crucial. My discussions with U.S. Trade Representative Bob Lighthizer and with the Department of Commerce tells me they want to work out a mini agreement, as they're calling it, with India on between 50 to 100 products. GSP remains a sticking point. We've had some challenges in India on trade policies, on nationalization issues, on what we would believe are sort of steps back from the more open trading agreement relationship we want to see, including more access to the Indian market. I think there's been progress made on a mini agreement. GSP continues to be really a sticking point. What Ambassador Lighthizer and the president's asked for is increased access to India for American, made in America products and services. So I'm hopeful that we can make progress there. As we near the election here in November, it gets less likely that those things resolve themselves immediately. But I believe the trajectory is all in the right direction. And we want to lower trade barriers, both here in the US and abroad, for our companies like Royal. So we're going to keep at the table. If you've got specific sort of ammunition or statistics that I can share with our trade negotiators for you, especially in the remanufacturing business of diesel engine hauling trucks, I'd be happy to do that too.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, David. I do want to assure you, David and Congressman, that we are very proud of the diplomats that India sends us.
Yeah.
And the Consul General of India in Houston, being from the World Trade Organization before he moved here, is very actively working on ironing out some of these ruffles that come up, because India and America are getting very close in the relationship. There will be a few hiccups, and I'm sure the two governments will work them out. There's a lot of conversation going on in the healthcare sector. The consulate has been organizing a series of events to focus on how we can collaborate as two nations to help solve the current and future pandemics and look after each other's healthcare needs. On the trade front, there's a lot of active dialogue going on. And as I said, some of these hiccups will be worked out, but I'm very, very confident that everything will sort out. David has been successful in India, and we were able to give him some good advice along the way. And we are here to help other companies that are looking at investing in India or importing from India. As a chamber, we work closely with the consulate to move the needle forward. Before I invite the Consul General to make his remarks, I want to invite Marianne Maldonado, the President and CEO of the World Affairs Council of Houston, to make her brief remarks. She had not received the link earlier, one of the technical glitches. She is with us now. So Marianne, on to you, please.
Thank you, Jagdeep. And Congressman, thank you for representing us in Washington, your leadership and your comments this morning. On behalf of our chairman, Soma Sundaram, who's on the call, and many of the friends that we see here today and represented on this call, we're so appreciative of all the work that you've done. And we are honored to be a part and join and partner with the Indo-American Chamber to bring on such informative and necessary and useful conversations such as we're having this morning. The World Affairs Council is committed to helping our citizenry here in the region to understand what's happening globally, whether you're calling from an upstairs bedroom in Crockett, Texas, to DC, to somewhere in LA or in India. It's so important that we have these dialogues, and thank you for your office's commitment to the World Affairs Council of Greater Houston. And thank you again, Jagdeep, for allowing us to partner on such an informative and important conversation.
Thank you, Marianne, and we hope to continue this partnership, and we hope to welcome Soma to join the chamber and become an active member of the chamber as well. I know he's leading your board. We'd love to have him involved in our chamber as well. With that, it's my honor and privilege to introduce a man that we all admire. But before I do that, let me invite all the panelists to please switch on your cameras. We had requested everybody to switch off your cameras, but we'd like to have a screenshot of all the eminent speakers and participants on today's event. We normally would do a group photograph at a live event, and having the congressman with us, we would like to capture everybody who is with us with a screenshot. So if you could all switch on your cameras, I will now invite the Consul General of India to speak. I will introduce him, and then he will make his remarks, after which the congressman will come back and make some wrap-up comments. We'll have a vote of thanks by our sponsor, Amir Ali Dodia, and then I'll wrap up the call, hopefully by 10 o'clock as promised. Asim Mahajan joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1998. Prior to assuming charge as the Consul General of India in Houston in January 2020, he was the ambassador and the representative of India to the World Trade Organization, Geneva. In his earlier diplomatic assignments, he has served as the Deputy High Commissioner in the Indian mission in Kuala Lumpur and Dhaka, and as the Consul General of India, Osaka, Japan. He has also served in Indian missions in Tokyo and in Laos. He is the perfect man to be on the ground here to help us resolve a lot of the trade issues that we are talking about. It's my honor and privilege to invite Consul General Mahajan to make his remarks.
Thank you, Jagdeep ji, and good morning to all of you. Congressman Brady, it is really a pleasure for me to join you today in this conversation. As you are aware, the Chamber has been doing a number of events and conversations in the past couple of months. We have been passing through some unprecedented times due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In the initial days, it was a bit of a challenge for us also due to flight bans and people not being able to travel. But as we have gone along, I'm really happy to mention that we have received unstinted support, Congressman, from people like you and from state authorities, from cities, from towns, and from our very vibrant Indo-American community here who are doing their own bit to support their communities and their cities, their towns, and in whatever way to help each other. Having said that, you, Congressman, you are more than me. You are aware of the depth of our relationship. The relations between India and United States are multifaceted. They are being seen as the most transformational relationship of our times. President Trump had a very successful visit to India in February this year. Prior to that, last year, Prime Minister Modi had come to Houston for the Howdy Modi event, which generated a lot of excitement for us, especially in this part of United States. So before I moved in from Geneva, when I went to India, Houston now is known everywhere in India, and there is a lot of excitement in India to deepen our partnership with the southern part of United States, and people want to increase people-to-people contact, trade and investment. Many of the speakers have earlier mentioned about trade between both countries. Trade, I think, is one of the important areas in which we are working together. Of course, our strategic partnership includes areas like security, energy, technology, and we cooperate on many regional and bilateral issues together. But trade and economic ties are a very important pillar. And that is where the consulate is really proud of having a chamber which is so active here, and they have been great bridges for us to deepen these ties. We are also working with many states, with many other chambers, with many cities. Recently, we did an event on healthcare and medical research. Lot of interest in that area also, more because it is in focus during this pandemic, and companies from India are partnering. Congressman, you may be aware that even for a vaccine, Baylor College has recently, Baylor College of Medicine has signed an agreement recently, and our Indian Council for Medical Research is working with the National Institute of Health, with the CDC. Houston, in this greater Houston partnership, is also here today. Houston is, in fact, India's trade with Houston has been growing very rapidly. India is the only country which has registered a more than 40% growth in the last couple of years. And we are now the 6th largest partner, slated to go higher. While we don't have the latest statistics, but before the pandemic, the depth of this trade was increasing. The second thing which I want to mention is that Texas is the state which is attracting the highest investments from India. We have now more than 40 companies with $9.5 billion worth of investment and creating 17,500 jobs. That number is growing. So I think on trade and investment, as you mentioned, we have a lot of work to do together. Congressman, you are holding, you are a great friend of our India, and a very valuable partner for us in building this relationship. We look forward to your support, your guidance. On the trade side, of course, there is a lot of work to do on the policy side. You touched upon some of those areas. I was doing that for 4 years in the WTO, but I think some areas like the global value chains, for example, is one area where India and United States have a lot of complementarities, and both countries can actually work together to further strengthen our policy framework and also the mechanics of the supply chains in terms of connecting companies with each other. A lot of American companies have the knowledge and know-how. While we are at the consulate, many companies are reaching out because India is a huge market. We were growing at more than 6% for the last few years. It is a country of 1.3 billion people, and you are aware of the demographics. So I really look forward to working with you on all these areas in depth. We are just going to do an event on food processing. Then we are going to do one on energy. This is also the energy capital. From a scratch, we have gone to $9 billion, and it is one of the important pillars of our relationship in areas like financial technologies, advanced manufacturing, exchange of in healthcare, in aerospace, in defense. So I think the canvas is very wide, Congressman, and both countries have, we share democratic values. We have a lot of complementarities. So I see that this will be also a relationship which has a lot of potential for us to work together. So I really look forward to meeting you in person, of course, when this situation normalizes and we get back to the way we were conducting our business earlier, and also to your continued support and guidance for us, for the community here. And I assure you that as the consulate, we will do our best to be part of your activities and do whatever we can. So thank you again, Congressman, for this opportunity today and for taking out your valuable time for joining us for this conversation.
Well, let me just say this, Asim. We are very excited to have you take this post. Our consular corps here in Houston, I think, is one of the best in the country. And as Jagdeep said, the India Consul General has always played a major leadership role, both in our region, but for our region of the United States. And you bring with you some really, I think, unique skills and expertise, especially in trade at a time when we need it the most. And so thank you for, your comments just really, I think, encapsulated where our shared goals and common goals are. And I really look forward, to meeting you and then to working together with you as well.
An honor and pleasure that we could connect with you, and we all know the great work you are doing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I would now like to invite Mr. Amir Ali Dhodia to make some brief remarks. Amir is the sponsor of today's program. Amir Ali Dodia, to please make some brief remarks. While Bhavna is Amir,
I think we might have lost him, Jagdeep.
Yeah, so we'll try and get him back. But in the meanwhile, let me make my closing remarks. We thank Congressman Brady for making the time to join us, and Mallory and Preston from his office for all their support. The Indo-American Chamber President Tarush Anand and our board thank our advisor Vijay Guradia and the Consul General of India, Asim Mahajan, and the other business leaders who have asked questions today, and everyone who joined on the Zoom or through the several Facebook live feeds on today's call. What I'd like to mention is that it's not just the people who log on to the event today. Most people prefer these days to log on to our Facebook feeds, and it's the Chamber Facebook feed, it's the Seva Facebook feed. So while the event is live, we have between 800 and 1,000 people who could be viewing the event. And then we record it and then share it with our community and our participants. So it's a privilege to be able to share all this information across multiple medias. I do want to invite anybody who's not a member of the Chamber to consider joining the Chamber. I also want to thank Bhavna Kalyan, the lady behind the scenes who makes everything work so seamlessly. We want to thank our collaborating organizations, the Greater Houston Partnership and the World Affairs Council of Houston, and our partner organizations who help promote today's event. The slide showcases our relationship with the consulate and with our partner organizations. We also want to thank our media partners. It's thanks to these media partners that we get the word out before the event and after the event. And our next event is an by invitation event by Mr. Amir Ali Dodia. And if you're interested in being invited to this event, reach out to us. We will send you a flyer for this event and a login link. If you're interested, reach out to us. With that, I want to hand over to Mr. Amir Dodia to make his remarks. Amir, you're live.
Thank you, Mr. Jagdeep, for giving me this opportunity today to sponsor this event. I also thank the Indian American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Houston for trusting me for having this event sponsored. Congressman Brady, thank you for your service, and thank you for enlightening us today with your powerful words of wisdom. This pandemic has changed a lot of people's life, and I think this pandemic has also brought a lot of us into realization why an estate plan is important. With that being said, I would like to invite everyone to this upcoming webinar on September 15th. This webinar is going to be focused on common mistakes, solutions and strategies of an effective estate plan, and what should we do from the accumulation phase of our assets to the transition phase to the next generation. And I'd like to thank everyone in the panel today for sharing your thoughts and giving your input in all the difficulties we are facing in today's time. Thank you, Jagdeep, very much.
Thank you, Amir Bhai. I would like to point out that the event that Amir Bhai is talking about will be a by invitation only event. We want to limit it to no more than 30 people. So everybody who's on today's call, whether you're a panelist or an attendee, is welcome and invited to join us. Send us a link, we'll send you the invitation. And if you're interested, you have the first option to ask for a seat. But here it's not about promoting the next event. It's about thanking the congressman for the great work he has done and continues to do. To answer David's question, We know there are hiccups in business. That's what the chamber works with the consulate to help iron out, and so does the congressman and our government in America. We are sure the future is going to be a lot more stronger and a lot more positive. We are going through a patch which each one of us has been able to respond to in our own way. The chamber, a 21-year-old organization, keeps evolving with the changing times, and the current evolution, thanks to the brains of our president Tarush and the board, came up with this concept of Zoom meetings. And today, it's a lot easier for the congressman to join us without having to fly in. We had the ambassador of the US to India, the former ambassador, who for the first time when he spoke to us flew in, but this time he was able to log in. We are looking forward to hosting Senator Cruz and other congressmen and women in the near future. We will continue our events. Our website is IACCGH.com. With that, I once again want to thank the congressman for his time. I want to thank the Consul General and our advisor Vijay and all the other business leaders who joined us, our collaborators. With that, today's event comes to an end. Stay safe, stay healthy, and looking forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you, Congressman. I will end with the traditional Indian greeting, which in today's world seems to be better than a handshake. Thank you very much.
Thank you, friend. Take care.